What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of The Mandalorian Season 3, the premiere, Chapter 17, Episode 17, The Apostate, directed by Rick Famuyiwa. Man, it's been over 2 years since The Mandalorian Season 2 finale at the end of 2020, and we saw Mando for, 2.5 episodes in Book of Boba Fett, but even that was over a year ago, so it's been a minute. Of course, Star Wars was still in our lives a lot on Disney Plus and the TV front last year with Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and of course the illustrious Andor season 1. But Mando, the crown jewel of the franchise for now, is back, and I think we had a very effective premiere. I'll just say it out front, but I'm going to go into spoilers for this and also talk about my thoughts and feelings and expectations and hopes for the rest of The Mandalorian Season 3. So, spoilers ahead. But yeah, I thought this was an effective, successful premiere, kind of similar to the first two season premieres of The Mandalorian. It's not necessarily a wow you or knock your socks off episode in the sense of doing anything you haven't seen The Mandalorian do as a series before, but what it does do is remind you of why we like The Mandalorian so much, why we like these characters, these dynamics, these rhythms on this show, and it reminds you why that works because a lot of these components are just so successful and fun to be with, and that's great. I just like being in this world with these buddies, Din and Grogu respectively, of course. But yeah, I mean, I think let's kind of go through like the beats of what happens. Like right off the bat, we have this scene where we see the armorer, a Mandalorian character from the Watch, making a helmet, doing this ritual for a new foundling. And I think it's like kind of a fun like fake out. You think this is like young Din becoming one of the Watch, becoming a Mandalorian, but it's actually not. It's a present day scene, and Din ultimately saves the day. And it leads to this, I think, really excellent looking set piece where this gigantic aquatic crocodile-esque beast attacks the Watch, attacks all the Mandos, and I think it looks amazing, fantastic CGI, very reminiscent again of the season 2 premiere where we see the Great Dragon attack the Tuskens and whatnot. Um, I think seeing the Tuskens fight the Crate was really cool and also like a really fun lore moment. This was just kind of like an anonymous beast we didn't have any connection to before, so it doesn't hit quite the same. But I think it looked fantastic for sure, especially when it was, well, yeah, I think laying the smackdown on, flipping around and stuff. It was pretty cool. Um, and from there, you kind of have the armorer and Din talking and kind of reiterating Din's new quest, new mission to go to the home world, go to Mandalore in its ravaged state, and cleanse himself effectively. And this is something that had been stated in the Book of Boba Fett during the Mando episodes of that series. But I think it's kind of smart to quickly rehash that for the average Mando viewer because I think there's plenty of people, you could probably say millions of people out there that'll watch Mando season 3 that maybe didn't watch Book of Boba Fett at all. And as much as it's not exactly hard to watch 2.5, 3 episodes of Book of Boba Fett to be completely caught up if you care about it to that degree, I don't think it's a big deal to briefly restate, this. Just like later on, we hear about Moff Gideon's current fate, New Republic Tribunal, something that's actually restated from Book of Boba Fett comment as well. Again, just letting you know, just in case you didn't watch Book of Boba Fett. I think it's smart to not really beat people over the head with, you got to watch everything. Marvel's certainly learning this lesson right now. But yeah, going from this anonymous planet, Din kind of relearning his new mission to be accepted. Kind of funny that he's still kind of fixated on being able to rejoin the Watch and be accepted as a Mandalorian in this clan again because he's making his own path with Grogu. So why does he really care about the fact they took his helmet off and pissed off these people who have not been the most kind to him in recent moments? Think back to season 2. I don't know. Din's motivations for this are a bit unclear to me, but I don't think it's a big deal because it's just a way of getting Din to Mandalore, and I can't wait to see Mandalore in its post purge Imperial bombing state. I mean, that sounds really cool and fun lore path to explore for the hardcore Star Wars fan. Absolutely. Then you have, speaking of lore, on the way to Navarro, we see Grogu noting Purgles in hyperspace, the space whales, of course, introduced in Star Wars Rebels. I mean, that is fucking catnip for a Star Wars Rebels fan. As we know, the Purgles played a huge part in the Star Wars Rebels series finale in terms of what happened to Ezra and Grand Admiral Thrawn, and this is effectively a nod to assumingly what we're going to see and learn in Ahsoka later this year. So that's just cool to see the Purgles, even the silhouettes of them in hyperspace, kind of acknowledged in live action. Really exciting. Then we get to Navarro, and Navarro is a very different place from the Navarro we know from, especially season one. Right? It's much more lavish and teeming with life as this kind of raucous, successful trading spaceport, under the stewardship of Grief Cargo, who's like now the magistrate and running things. I thought it was really cool and honestly like a really fun, like a lot of background of seeing lots of different aliens. That's kind of been a criticism of some of these shows, especially Andor, where you don't see as many aliens uh, as you'd expect on these types of shows, and it makes sense. It's hard to and commit to putting everyone in makeup all the time, but it is fun to see it feel like a really like lifelike, rich world out there in the outer rim of space. I thought that was cool. And Grief just rocking an amazing, lavish cloak. Lando vibes for sure. He has droids literally holding his cloak and keeping it off the ground. Fucking awesome. Uh, from there, Din decides he wants to resurrect IG-11 to take with him to Mandalore. Din's fixation on getting IG-11, kind of funny. I didn't think that was really even remotely in play after he self-destructs at the end of season one, but kind of cool, I guess, foreshadowing for his eventual return, you'd have to imagine. In the process, Din encounters some Anzellans figures, the little dudes, the Babu Frick dudes from Rise of Skywalker. A nice nod, bring in another alien species and some funny humor with Grogu there. Speaking of good Grogu humor, I mean, in the scene in Grief's office, he's force spinning himself on a wheelie chair. Amazing. Force grabbing food and throwing it in his mouth. Like Grogu, like the use of Grogu, it's always a less is more thing, but man, like still one of the most ingenious uh, inventions ever in terms of pop culture. I still can't get over how successful it is. Um, yeah, so get this pirate standoff, which I think leads to a really exciting dogfight out in space. Looked amazing, on par with the space fighting you see in the movies. Introduced to this new pirate king character who looks like Swamp Thing. Let's go, and then we get to Kalamala, a Mandalorian planet, system in the Mandalorian planet, which is the Kriz homeworld. So that's of course where we find Bo-Katan chilling in a castle, robbed of all her forces, just kind of moping around and doing the villain slouch pretty overtly on that throne. It'll be, I think it's a big question if uh, Bo-Katan and Din will be friendly in the future after Din has the dark saber and thus the control of the normal Mandalorian's loyalties, and of course, we know the watch figures will factor in. So another Mandalorian civil war of sorts is probably on the horizon on this series. But I'm really excited to get to Mandalore and just explore that. Judging off the trailer, we're going to see more about the Order 66 flashbacks and Grogu's survival and how that happened. And Ahsoka said someone took him from the temple. Who did that? Obviously, that's very exciting, very interesting. I'll be curious if we get any more movement on the Imperial cloning stuff, which connects to the sequel trilogy. TBD on that. But man, I mean, this show just, the lone wolf and cub of it all is just really, really successful still. And like, I think the rhythms of the show are on full display with this premiere. So I really can't wait to see more. And I just have a lot of faith in John Favreau, Rick Famuyiwa, and everyone who's running the show. So really can't wait to be with it week to week. So happy it's back. There's not a whole lot on right now until Succession kicks off at the end of the month. So it's, I think, coming at a really good time as Last of Us is tailing off to really like dominate as we expect it to. But yeah, let me know, what are you most excited about with season 3 of The Mandalorian? How'd you feel about this premiere? And for more TV reviews, more Star Wars, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.